question.
Right.
It's not. I mean, it's a really well put together team. I know people have been talking about, oh, they don't have a number one receiver. They got four. I would say they're four receivers in Reed, Dobbs, Watson, and Wicks. I'd put up there with against any four in football. You don't have to have the superstar number one to win the Super Bowl, all right? The Kansas City Chiefs won the last two without a number one receiver, right? I mean, there's a lot of that. Did the Eagles have a number one receiver when they beat the Patriots?
Right.
Did the Patriots really ever have a number one receiver when they were winning? They had Gronk and Edelman, but they weren't going to force feed it like, oh, we got to get him the ball every night. They ran an offense, and you had to figure out, hey, Tom's going to go to the right place with this ball, with our creative plays, right? The Broncos in 2015, did they have a number one? No. Neither did the Carolina Panthers they were playing in that Super Bowl. I would argue the 2012 Ravens didn't have a number one receiver. The 2013 Seattle Seahawks, I would say, did not have a number one receiver. It's committees.
Yep.
Drew Brees and the 2009 Saints team, there was no go-to one guy. It was committee. If they're good enough and the system's good enough, right, and then you have the quarterback to go with that, you can make it work. You don't need to have Randy Moss or Terrell Owens, all right? That would be my point. So they have a great roster, getting back to the point. My one thing with them, it's just Eric Stokes. I mean, Eric Stokes has a chance to be a star at corner. He just can never stay healthy.
Right.
He's got everything. Man, if they can get him to be healthy for a full year with Jair Alexander, and you put those two out there, and now you get the ability to, not only is our D-line damn good, but, you know, we can be a little aggressive, blitzing, and be crazy every now and then because we got two cover guys we trust that can kind of handle it if we take a chance. That, to me, would put them over the top and going, oh, my gosh, because I think their D-line is very talented. It's got depth. I mean, real depth. Like 8 or 10 guys I look at to go, they can all play and be good football players. So that would be my one spot. Anything else?
Okay. So I want to talk more about the offense. He kind of just tacked on the defensive thing at the very end of that for the Packers, which I think everything he said, of course, was 100% accurate. And I think it's overlooked a lot of times when you can kind of trust in terms of when blitzing and if they can recover in that regard. So I think that obviously has the potential to be a legitimate domino that could fall in the right way, you know, in a positive for the Green Bay Packers if they can kind of get that locked. But what I wanted to say is that for the whole thing about wide receivers, right, by committee, first off, I don't think it's fair to throw in some of these other teams like the Eagles in 2017 or the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like, both those teams, first off, but especially the Chiefs, you know, you have Travis Kelce, right? Like, that's as good as your number one receiver. The Eagles had Zach Ertz, who was the massive, consistent force, the ultimate security blanket, as proven as, like, I think it was the next year or the year after, set the record for most receptions from a tight end. So I don't think that those are great examples. I get what he's saying, and I'm not saying that he's wrong, but let's not, you know, overlook the importance of having a go-to guy that has been coming increasingly more to the tight end for some of these great quarterbacks or just great teams in general, that it can't be overlooked. But I do agree, right? You don't need to necessarily have that number one wide receiver, but make no mistake about it, the Eagles don't go to the Super Bowl or have a fighting chance to win the Super Bowl if A.J. Brown isn't there. But there is absolute positively benefits to not having that true number one receiver who, more often than not, unfortunately, as stereotypical as it is, it just seems to be true that they're a diva, right? They do. They demand so much attention on and off the field that the quarterbacks, the offensive coordinator, the head coach, like, there's all that pressure to get them the ball. And speaking of Eagles and the A.J. Brown, we saw that with A.J. Brown. I keep forgetting when this was. It was either in the NFC Championship game or the round before, when the Eagles were clearly winning and rolling and everything was going well. A.J. Brown was still unhappy. Right, he was upset. He was kind of like yelling and carrying on, and a bunch of other players. And I think Sirianni like had to like calm him down. And it was just like, you're winning. Like, you're going to the NFC Championship game or you're going to the Super Bowl. Like, grow up. right? And his other friend, the other wide receiver, Devontae, was having an amazing game. An amazing game, was balling out. That was his day to shine. That was his game to shine. Don't be a baby, and it can be a problem. And then even when the Eagles were winning this past season in 23, AJ was carrying on and complaining that he wasn't getting the ball. And then you could see that Jalen Hurts was then now trying to force the ball to him. And so the fact that they don't have the Green Bay Packers aren't in that situation is a luxury, is great. When you can have, 2, 3, 4 really good to great wide receivers who now all understand their role, it's great. Better believe the 49ers are in trouble with Brandon Ayuk. Whether he's forcing himself off the team or if he stays, he's going to want the ball. Like, he's becoming a diva, a big diva, and a baby at that. He's being more A.J. Brown than not. More old school Diggs than what probably Diggs has become with the Houston Texans. That's a problem. That there's a lot of pressure from especially like a young quarterback. And so that's the benefit that the Packers have so much, is that this team, they're all so young and they're all growing together. That to me is what really kind of helps them be able to have that consistency, that continuity, and that connectedness, which matters, especially when you're a younger team. And, it says here that, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jaden Reed can be the Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that would be unbelievable, right? Like if that actually ends up happening, that could be unbelievable, right? That if he can really transcend into this surefire, consistent number one option that you can rely on, right? Like that you can kind of be your security blanket, or someone that is just getting so much attention on the field that it can then kind of open up not only for the other receivers, but then also the passing game, or the rush, the rush as well. Then again, you're just giving Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur endless options at that regard. To me, that's what the offense needs to do. You can always look at it in a few ways, but for the Packers, I think looking at it, whereas if you can give Jordan Love room to work, he will be able to just blast the door off the hinges against these defenses, right? If you give him room to work. And if these weapons, and Jordan Love for that matter, prove capable, which obviously I believe they are, that now opens up the playbook for Matt LaFleur. That gives Matt LaFleur now endless options to just keep picking his poison, right? It just opens up. And Matt LaFleur to me is an offensive genius, right? Like, he is a top offensive coach in the NFL. So if you prove that you are capable of doing what Matt LaFleur wants, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I just think that the Packers are in such a fantastic situation moving forward. And yeah, it is. It's going to depend. Some of these things, because I keep saying that the Packers are potentially like, dynasty building. That's what I kind of keep saying. And I think some of it will depend on some of these little things. Which wide receiver really can take that next step up, right? Can really start to truly be the type of player that the defensive coordinator for the other team and just the defense as a whole are like, we got to worry about that guy. That guy has the potential to burn us. Doesn't mean you need to be a true number one, Terrell Owens, A.J. Brown. It does not to say that it has to be that extreme, but better believe people are having sleepless nights about Travis Kelce. They had sleepless nights back in 2017 about Zach Ertz. And again, it doesn't have to just be some of these insane Tyreek Hill level, explosive type plays, but just sometimes that consistency and just knowing that that is a force to be reckoned with, that can be enough. That can be enough to kind of really skew the defensive game plan against, say, a team like the Packers, which then Matt LaFleur will be able to exploit. And Jordan Love, by extension. So those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? What do you think about this idea about, we usually hear running back by committee, but, wide receiver by committee, or the chances that Jaden Reed can take that next step and potentially be a true bona fide number one option in the passing game? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.